Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are gonna do a couple missions, and we'll do then we will do the main story mission. While also continuing with, yeah, I'm gonna have to use these new guys, because a couple of my boys are injured. Another helicopter we're gonna take out.
Waste time. We have to stop that helicopter. Roger, Doc.
What are these?
What is it like being so
Okay,
inconsequential?
they're not bad. She got a big ass sword.
This should be good. I bet your Hydra recruiter didn't mention any of this, huh?
No idea what this does, but okay.
Still not
Ah,
behind me again.
that's effective. Well, they really don't like her.
Coming for me. Whoa. It's spinning. Looks like they want to try a few more.
Don't waste the opportunity.
Keep it up. As they say, it gets the job.
Okay. At least give me one more turn. I'll whoop this guy's ass.
Let's try it. So let's see how that works.
Yeah, I knew that was gonna happen. Okay. Yeah, but we're gonna also talk about William McKinley,
Making me angry.
number 26 in the line of the presidents. I think. Hang on. 25 or 26. We're gonna finish talking about his first term because, again, it's mainly foreign policy that really gets to the heart of his first term, because it's primarily about specifically the Spanish-American War.
The helicopter is back in action. Finish it off while we have the chance.
You are like an ant to me. I'll step on you if I have to.
Ooh. Well, I have 3 card plays.
How about this one? Ever been punched in the face by a god? Today might be your lucky day. Focus on.
Don't know what the fast thing is. The Spanish-American War, by the way, it's a very, very short war. I think it's only about a 100-day war, technically.
That one. That wasn't bad.
Teddy Roosevelt gets famous. I mean, the United States dominates this war. They destroy the Spanish fleet. Seized Manila in the Philippines. Pretty much just occupied most of, if not all of the Spanish territories because of that.
Helicopter is preparing for takeoff. We still have some time. Make sure you don't ignore it.
Ooh, this is not good. Move you actually right here.
You had this coming. What's this?
Yeah, I was definitely overkill, but I thought that was free.
It's about time.
Now, McKinley also toured the new territories, by the way.
Really want to keep doing that? No pressure, right?
That's not bueno.
The helicopter is about to leave. Time is running out. Stop that helicopter.
Finish this thing.
Which one are you guys again? Army? B team? Third string?
If there are any enemies, okay.
Helicopter. Clean up the rest of these Hydra thugs.
Now, I think the big question is, do people like him? Depends on how you want to look at it. A lot of people did see him as an individual with a lot of influence, a lot of power. He was always very wary of people, and that's, I think, another reason. More block. Okay. I think another reason why I like him is because he was always a paranoid president, and I think in particular it was specifically more so. I think it was the Speaker of the House at the time, Mr. I think his name was Joe Cannon. They called him Uncle Joe Cannon. Don't know why I remember that. He always said he was like a grasshopper with his ear to the ground, which is a very strange statement. I don't know if that's actually a thing. I always seemed a little cautious, more so than change the cost. Oh. Always seemed very cautious throughout his entire first term as president, which, in fairness, I would understand, because it seems like there's always things happening, and I think he was always just a little curious about, like, how did he get the nomination for president? What? I'm not saying he's like a conspiracy theorist or anything like that, but it does seem, at the very least to me, that he was someone to, just be wary of the realities of the world and the situation, which might lead some individuals to be like, no wonder why he was assassinated. He just seemed very cautious and always wanted to make sure that he was doing the right things.
Hunter, I need your help. Magic's birthday is coming up. I want to throw her a surprise party, but I can't.
Of course. Why not?
If you could get together midnight,
His first term, he was always
weight off my shoulders.
just very cautious. That's why he was very close with certain people and specifically trusted his cabinet.
All right. Let me know when you're ready.
Still figuring out who and what I need, but I'll message you when I do. Probably tomorrow?
Sounds good.
Thanks for this. Do you have
We're
any
gonna throw a
questions?
birthday party in this game.
Where are we going to have the party?
I'm still scouting locations, but somewhere inside the Abbey. We'll make it work.
That is all right.
Okay.
I'm good for now.
I'm good if you're good. Thanks for this. Can't wait to see the look on her face.
And I think that's why people liked him too. It just seems like he was always overly cautious over a lot of things.
That was probably a mistake. I kept having dreams that I was swallowed by Sandman. That's actually happened. Look, man, I get
I think people tend to like the skeptical people, the skeptical presidents,
struggle with it for a while myself.
or the ones who show restraint more than anything else.
Finally started
Don't
trusting
jump to conclusions, and he was always one that did that.
crazy, but like family. And what about your real
Not to mention too the
Don't you worry about what could happen?
increased industrialization because of both the war and I think just in general at the turn of the century was really ramping up, and McKinley got a lot of credit for that, for allowing them to continue with making their businesses, more protectionist policies, and really stimulating real American and economic growth. Not to mention too, it helps that he was much more of the gold standard person, signing that into office.
Now with the gigantic demonically powered pizza oven in the forge. Excuse me, would you? Hey man, it's okay. We can talk about something else if you want.
Yes.
Now, the election in 1900,
Can't. Got something I need to do.
it was clearly
Really thought I had him
both impeach.
Okay, you wanted it, you got it.
Oh, what does he look like?
What?
I give you by popular demand the man underneath the mask.
Peter Parker from Forest Hills Coins. Nice to see you finally ditch the spider-faced doily, Peter. We're all friends here. You got our attention, so what do you got to say, Petey?
Hi?
Oh, Peter.
After all that build-up, I hope I didn't disappoint anybody. I mean, I can't shoot laser beams, light my skull on fire, or glow like the sun. Like Tony said, outside of the costume,
This is a weird game, people.
I don't even have a cool screen name.
I've seen you in battle with Venom, Peter.
Election 1900, though, is a very interesting one.
Anything but boring.
It's gonna be the same people, but two big caveats I would probably say. It's gonna be William McKinley versus William Jennings Bryan
Oh yeah,
um,
actually surprised myself.
in a contested Democrat convention, but William Jennings Bryan does become the nominee. First caveat is that there was no vice president. I forgot what happened to William McKinley's vice president, but
So what do you say?
there was no clear option and choice, and ultimately Teddy Roosevelt ends up having his name thrown into the ring and ultimately ends up basically becoming the guy. The second caveat is that
There must be quite a story about how you became this way.
obviously things shifted for the most part. Democrats were still focusing on money and monetary policy. This is more so because the Midwest wasn't doing as well as the industrial Northeast. That created some issues. Republicans were basically just like, look, we're at war, we have prosperity at home for the most part, and you know we're doing a lot of good things. It also helped too that Teddy Roosevelt was because it was one of those, they call it front porch campaigns where McKinley doesn't really campaign, but other people will campaign for him. Teddy Roosevelt was the guy. He's the one on the soapbox just voicing all the opinions. It also helps too that he was, Teddy Roosevelt in particular was the working man's Republican, and it just seemed like for the most part that this was just a pretty clear and succinct
Until now, I thought that impossible.
like block, I guess you could say. People like William McKinley. He wins an overwhelming majority of the states. I think like William Jennings Bryan only wins in like the deep Democratic South. I think he only wins like 4 states, which is crazy to think about. But William McKinley does win the election of 1900, wins his second term, and which is funny because when they first get inaugurated, he doesn't really even do anything for the first like 6-7 weeks. He goes on this speaking tour that excuse me. He goes on this speaking tour and then just basically doesn't really do anything for the first 6 weeks of his term as president, which I always just find really funny. I don't know why. Just like, no, you don't really need the president. Just just gonna go on tour, might sign some stuff while while on this my little caddy.
Call me a romantic, but I believe there's still good in everyone. Guess that's why I have a soft spot for Eddie. And the symbiote, too. That symbiote saved my life on more than a few occasions. Deep down, I know there's more than what you see on that slimy, oozing, brain-eating surface.
I think about a year into his term as president, he goes to see an exposition, or an expo, basically, where at this particular point, understand that historically, I think assassination attempts with a lot of these world leaders, let's be fair, a lot of them were becoming not particularly good leaders.
So, anything else you're curious about?
Thank you, Peter. I should be going. This was eye-opening.
For both of us?
Like, it's not just Archduke Franz Ferdinand, that's going to get assassinated. There's been many attempts at various different leaders during that particular time and period. Let's just say the workers were not very happy. It's one thing people do need to understand is that, that there is a reason why,
Farewell.
justified or not, why, like, say, the Communist Manifesto becomes a thing. Pool lounging. Oh, what? What the fuck?
I need to take you street racing.
What is this game?
Is that like running?
And obviously, the presidents of the United States were not, immune to this. If anything, they were hyper aware of what was actually going on when it comes to stuff like that. I think even one or two attempts. Where McKinley's speaking, he has to actually leave because it's too big. It's really hard for people to keep track of who's actually there to watch him and who's going to be there to assassinate him.
It's no fun if you win every time. Always great to hang with you, Hunter.
Oh, what the?
Something amiss?
Anyways, one day, during this, it was in Buffalo, New York, I think, where this guy, Leon Kozgolz, I can't pronounce his name. His last name is C-Z-O-L, as in log, G-O-S, and Z.
Every victory we have inches us
He was a vehement anarchist.
life we save.
I mean, you want to talk about, like, let's say the more crazy liberal-minded individuals who, like, go into the streets and protest, like those Antifa people. Like, he's literally that, basically. He was crazy. He's for the workers. Goes and attempts like, good lord, attempts like 3 times in the same day to try to actually assassinate him. I think he ends up failing. And I think it was the next day or two. He basically gets in very close. He conceals a gun in a handkerchief. And then once he gets just close enough, bang bang. Takes 2 shots, shoots him right in the stomach. Ends up severely debilitating him. Can I? Oh. But I can.
Hello, Hunter.
Where did the words of power come from?
Well, I often call them blessings or gifts of the old gods. The words of power are actually powerful invocations tuned to the unique energies found in descendants of the blood.
And Caretaker used the words as well.
Of course, dear. Sarah used the words of power on the Abbey grounds.
So, anyways, McKinley shot. Dun dun dun. Shot twice in the stomach.
Areas you encounter that seem
I think he actually saves his attacker because once he's shot, a mob just basically starts beating him just ruthlessly. And he's taken to basically the nearest nurse station, I guess you could say. And after hearing the news, for at least the first 2 or 3 days, it looked like he was doing okay. Although that's because infection hadn't set in yet. Which is funny to talk about because Teddy Roosevelt hears the news and he hears that he's improving and he's like,
And so was Wanda.
okay, I'm off to the mountains. goodbye, and then literally just leaves. And then about a week later, he starts getting worse and worse and worse.
Of course. Why wouldn't I? What good is being
And
as we are?
problem is that he's shot in the stomach, quite literally. His abdomen, in his intestines, everything is completely infected, gangrenous. Just he's not doing too hot. I'll put it that way. And then he basically ends up into a coma eventually, after saying his last prayers, realizing that he's gonna die. He also has famous last words, sings a big Christian hymn. Dies on September 14th, I believe, in 1901. Teddy Roosevelt finally hears about it, rushes back to Buffalo, New York, and then basically gets inaugurated as the new president of the United States.
Indeed.
And just to let you know, basically his wife does pass away shortly after. Well, not shortly, but like I think she passes away like 3 or 4 years after. And that's William McKinley, basically, in a nutshell. Again, he's out of all of the presidents who post-Civil War up until like the turn of the century, he's the one that I would probably adore, and one that I probably, the more I look at, the more I'm like, you know, he's not a bad man. He's a good man, and actually he does a lot of really good things. I think he's actually genuine in the processes and the things that he ultimately ends up doing. Again, I'm probably biased, and I'm probably reading way too into it, but it's one thing to do something that's crappy and then spin it, and then it's one thing to do something good or okay, and or have at least most people agree that this actually happened, where you showed restraint and actual thought and try to be very meticulous into doing your things, where morals guide you. I think that's why I tend to like McKinley more than anything else. Don't know what I'm doing. Just gonna. Is it time to go to bed? Yep, it is time to go to bed, people. So I think I'm getting the general layout of this game. I do wish that maybe I should have played this on easy, because I want to just enjoy it. Oh, what the? Okay. But generally speaking, yeah, I tend to like these people. I tend to like him, and I tend to just appreciate an individual and a president like William McKinley, especially when we have so many that are completely just the exact opposite of that. And you know, and honestly, I'll be fair, it really does depend on your temperance and your belief on what the president and what people in political office ultimately should be doing. Which is why, for me, I'm always someone who's like, the less you do, the more you give to the people within reason, the choice to be able to do so, the better you're ultimately gonna be, and ultimately someone that I am probably gonna like and appreciate a lot more.
Mr. Stark and Doctor Strange, go right ahead. Me, I'll be outside. Most of the air's been sucked up from here already.
I'm getting used to the Avengers being around this place.
And this game is
I mean, yeah, Tony
a
can
little
be
weird, a
involved,
little crazy.
but not all of them.
Of course.
Although it makes me wonder.
Wonder what?
Well,
I mean, if you're gonna have to rank presidents, which I hate doing that,
When facing
but I also really like doing that, if I'm gonna be blunt and honest with myself,
why are you
he's
talking
probably gonna be in the top half for me.
to them?
But not without, you know, his negative qualities and caveats. Although I think it's much more so specifically about the time and the era that he ultimately lived in.
Blow yourself that
You know, I mean, he may have sided with a lot of big business, capitalistic minded individuals who kind of started getting their fingers, really getting their fingers into the federal government at this point. But he always showed restraint, and I think that if things were a little bit different, more decentralized in a lot of aspects, then he's probably going to be more of like a John Tyler kind of president, I think. Although that's probably a bit of a leap of faith, but he tended to be much more hands-off than hands-on as a president, which, you know, might rub some people the wrong way. I think it also helps a lot of people in a lot of ways as well.
Like a extra extended family to me.
Bobby, can we speak in private?
Of course. Let's go.
Nico needs help prepping for a magic surprise party.
All right. What does she
That's William McKinley. I appreciate him.
She wanted you to pick the team president.
Tend to like him, and
Oh, I got this. I'll find
yeah, just one that I think historically I think is looked on far more fondly than not.
You don't need to check up on me, Hunter. I'm fine.
Perhaps I wanted some fresh air as well.
Well, enjoy it while you can. I'm sure they'll be opening an Avengers satellite campus here soon enough.
The gods spare us all.
Look, the Abbey might be a little rustic, but it's ours. It was ours. Until these Avengers just swooped in and started treating us like a bunch of outsiders in our own home. And it's not like Caretaker does anything to stop it. Hell, she freaking encourages it. It pisses me off so much I can scream.
The Avengers are powerful allies.
Yeah, so I keep hearing.
Is there like a light and a dark ending in this game?
The others. There is a reason Caretaker chose you for the Midnight Suns. You'll have many chances to prove yourself.
For those of you who don't know, I tend to be someone who always just chooses usually the light side and instead of the dark side of things.
Assemble anytime soon, but I get it.
Don't be wrong, like if I play a game again, I might do like a dark side playthrough if it gives me that option, but for the most part, I just tend to do the light side story stuff.
Discuss how we're gonna rescue her. Because
Like
we've got
Infamous,
no plans to, especially
I
Caretaker.
tended to just be good Cole instead of bad Cole.
Get I said
Although
that.
bad Cole had all the cool powers, but
Any of this.
the game's a little sneaky.
Moment of silence, okay?
Sneaky good.
Good bet.
Curious why they haven't made another one. I think the last one that came out was that very strange deviation, that Second Son one. And I'll be fair, I think that the second Infamous game left a lot to be desired. How do we heal people?
later.
I'll pet you later, Charlie. I need to figure out what the heck I'm doing. Ooh, I can research things now?
What can we work on for you, Hunter?
I don't have artifacts to study. How do I get more research?
So, how's the whole saving the world thing going?
Did the game explain it? Because I feel like I should probably pay attention a little bit more instead of talking about, you know, all
Got some
these
upgrades for you?
historical figures within the history of this country. Sure.
I feel like find more coil, send it my way.
What the heck is that? That's the
Intriguing.
org. Okay. Ah, man. This game's a little frustrating, not gonna lie. Not gonna lie.
The person I wanted to see. Okay, I'll be honest with you.
But I think a
anything
good
is the person
point
I wanna see right now.
today, and to continue
Sit down
talking,
for a tea with Galactus if it meant I
we're gonna
couldn't
talk
sit through
about
these gamma readings for another second. It's all just starting to blur
probably
into one
one of the
giant
single
gamma
most
mess, you know?
famous historical figures in the history of this country.
Galactus is too busy to help.
A real American to a lot of people.
I've seen you hunt
Mr.
for
Teddy
flowers.
Roosevelt himself.
I believe you will find a way, Dr. Banner or not.
More of a white hole versus star, but I hear ya. Still, just because a gal can absorb gamma energy doesn't mean she's ready to teach a class on it at Empire State. And it's not just that.
Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Teddy, uncle of FDR, the great
I'm what they call a
bull moose
I catch glimpses of the
bully.
future. No idea why, but
Pretty
I'm
sure I
it's one of
think Ron Swanson's supposed to be some caricatured version of him in a lot of ways. I think not, to be quite honest with you. I have very mixed feelings, just to preface this, about Teddy Roosevelt.
Is this what Steven goes through?
Both as a man and as a president. I think he was an incredibly
Catch glimpses too. The past, the future.
extraordinary individual. No hesitation or doubt about that.
Source of our visions may differ.
Very strong, very determined,
Forgot I was
good in
talking to the
so many
children for a
qualities.
second. Still,
I think it's also fair that I think he was a hypocrite in a lot of ways, in terms of animal preservation,
Always here to talk about them.
I might just take you up on that.
nature preservation.
Chaotic at best.
I mean, hell, like the story about
Make sense of this.
why teddy bears are named teddy bears is because he was basically hunting and didn't want to kill a bear because it wasn't fair. But then he has his people end up killing the bear anyway, so it's kind of like, okay, you know. Don't get me wrong, that story's full of very interesting, let's say, things. And that's not the whole story, but at the same time, if the end,
Hey, can I ask a favor? Thanks, Hunter.
what the? Okay, interesting.
I couldn't help but hear some
Ultimately, though,
voices in the other room. Was wondering
he does things like that a lot, where it's kind of like,
some argument.
I know that, like, he didn't actually do the deed, but it's not like he didn't stop
Is she upset?
an animal death from happening, if that makes any sense. You know, sure, put the bear out of its misery. You didn't have to hunt to begin with, you know, so it's kind of like, yeah, you know. And he hunted for sport, don't get me wrong, but, you know, he's just someone who,
Have to think about how to handle this with Nico.
it feels like he says one thing, does another, and then does a completely different third thing on top of that. Okay, so I can get artifacts here. Might just have my guy here. Let's go, people. I need to increase this research. I need to heal my peoples. He's one of the few people, someone who's like Andrew Jackson, I would argue to a certain degree, whose life in so many ways and so many aspects are far more interesting than their actual time as commander-in-chief. You know, most people who are become presidents tend to live not necessarily boring lives, but, you know, lives that are very, very different. This is...
It will be done.
Hmm.
Time to bleed.
Do something for the rest of us.
Here it comes.
I definitely need to get to this truck, so hopefully we can accommodate that. Hell yeah, Blade. Dang it, that's not what I wanted, but okay. Get him! Get him!
And I thought, man, thank you.
Okay, maybe not that. Boom! I think I'm doing pretty good. I think we'll talk just about the beginnings of his term as president, though. Or not his term as president, of his life, though. He is a New Yorker. He was born right before the Civil War, actually, around the late 1850s, early 1860s, in New York. He was born into a very prominent family, the Roosevelts, obviously, big into Republican politics. I think he was the second kid. He had an older sister, I know that.
Shouldn't be that hard for a bunch of superheroes.
Time's up for these jumps.
Shot to the hunt.
It's weirdos like these that give people like us a bad reputation.
Yeah, I need to stop this truck. That's just so weird. I'm sorry. That's just funny to me.
I have to show off for me,
Hmm.
What piss me off.
That's not what you want. Oh, I think he's gonna die. Crap. See, this is a great conundrum. Because I gotta. Most of these missions are like this, where I actually have to stop some stuff, and it's a little annoying, but whatever. This Hydra truck's leaving. Okay, first I gotta heal. Who needs to be healed? My boy needs to be healed.
the light will carry you onward. Power of the light.
Don't blink. Give the mother my regards in hell. I turn guilty.
So far, so good. Let's see if I can last another turn, because there's a lot of bad guys here. growing up, his family is, again, very prominent New York socialites. Just big prominent individuals with a lot of ideological and political power. And they were big world travelers, big, just prominent individuals who lived, let's just say, very lavish lives.
Roll out. It's now or never. Hit that truck.
Accept your fate.
I'm impressed.
There we go.
We've stopped the truck. Clean up the rest of these Hydra thugs.
Okay, what the freak do I do? Try to hit me. I have a lot of heroism though. Let's see what happens. Suck it. That's not what you want. Oh god. The blade's down. Oh, could I knock that down? I can knock that down. Yeah, I gotta revive my peoples. Ugh, crap. So blade's down.
The advantage is mine. Hail that.
Okay, little by little, little by little. Well, that was a waste of a card then. Get murked. Okay. Drain. Soul here. Maybe on my left. And soul here.
You bring judgment upon yourself.
Yeah, let's end this properly. Hell yeah. I want that artifact really badly.
Receiving end of your wrath.
We've done it. Excellent work.
Not gonna lie, Teddy Roosevelt's a bit of a funny looking dude. If you get a chance to just see pictures of him without a mustache, without like seeing him as a kid, it's very funny to think about just his appearance overall, and I don't know. I find it fascinating. Now, famously, he as a kid was always very sickly. Unfortunately, he dealt with asthma as a young man. Had panic attacks as a young kid. Had night terrors. Pretty much just, I don't think he thought he was gonna live a very long life, unfortunately. But despite the panic attacks and anxiety, he was definitely someone who was energetic and loved zoology and loved all those things. And actually, they created his own little mini Roosevelt Museum of Natural History. He loved taxidermy. Really, really, really big into that. And like I said, when I mean that they were very rich and prosperous, it's the dude would take trips to all across Europe for long, extended periods of time. He's traveled to Egypt before he was like 15. Traveled the Alps. He was always very, very, very prominent in that ability to just be able to see the world, which I think if for someone like him, with his temperament, he sees it as beautiful and gets a different perspective of things that's not, completely just the American ideal. And I think that helped him in a lot of ways shape a lot of his future ideas and solidify a lot of the things that would make him foundationally an American for the better, I think. It depends on how you want to look at it, though. I think I'm going to end this part right around here, just whenever Robbie stops talking about his new forge area, because I want to see what this place is all about.
Where do I start? Wherever you want. Why not let Parker give you a quick rundown on our current project? After that, we'll close up the shop.
All right.
Man, this game has too many things. I think, if I'm going to be honest, there's so much stuff here.
But I did want to show off our first project. Don't have a name for this yet, but if you run into Eddie again, Venom, we think this could give you an edge. When we fought Eddie, the symbiote reacted strongly to your presence.
And just the graphics and the facial animations are not very good, not very detailed. And like they definitely don't have to be, but it is a little bit jarring to see this in a game that came out in 2022, 2023, and just like you guys could just do a little bit better. At least make it look a little less Uncanny Valley like,
Like your zingers that keep him distracted?
Robbie and I should let you name all our projects. Then we need to miniaturize it so it fits in your suit. But we can have it ready pretty quick.
Yeah, just be polite.
I knew you'd be into this. We're going to make so many weird things together.
Be polite.
Oh yeah, I can scrounge enough components to finish this.
Be nice. Don't be abrasive.
More? We'd have more options. I'll put together a list and send it to your spot. Bring what you can next time you're here.
All right.
Huh. Oh, well, I'll definitely do that.
Huh. So, how'd it turn out? Better than expected. Sick. So that's the shop. What do you think?
I could just be a dick and just be like, this place sucks.
Then think of what the three of us can do. I'll give you a heads up before shop class meets again.
Shop class?
Right. That's what we're calling our time here. See you then. Parker, sticking around?
Alright.
You were asking me if I'm sticking around.
Do I just leave?
Welcome to that.
The hell am I?
Like a spider web?
Oh. But that was abrupt. Can I do some research now? Ugh. Off to bed with me.
Well, looky who it is.
Can't I hang out with anyone now?
Why, hello.
Whatever. Sorry, it is really, really dry where I'm at. Yay, people are actually healed. Okay, thank you guys for watching and listening. Please like and subscribe. God bless, y'all rock.